campaign. Harris had a long day and was up very late last night, later than I was. After giving remarks at rallies in Georgia and in North Carolina, she made a surprise appearance during the opening sketch of Saturday Night Live alongside the comedian Maya Rudolph, who's been playing Harris on the show this season. Meanwhile, the results of NBC News' final national poll are out. This was just released in the last hour. NBC's poll finds that the race remains deadlocked and unchanged, with both candidates tied at 49% each among registered voters across the country. But again, remember, registered voters across the country doesn't tell you the full story because there are essentially 7 swing states. It also shows, by the way, this poll shows a larger gender gap compared to previous polls. Harris is winning with women by 16 points. Trump is ahead among men by 18 points. But there's another just-released poll that has sent shockwaves through the political world this weekend. Last night, the Des Moines Register and Mediacom published a poll showing that Harris has a 3-point lead over Trump among likely voters in, get this, Iowa, which has been a reliably red state. Now, that lead is still within the poll's margin of error, and Trump's campaign has tried to dismiss it as an outlier, but this poll is known as Iowa's gold standard. It's conducted by the acclaimed pollster J. Ann Seltzer, who has accurately predicted the outcome of many recent elections in that state. And that surprising result has made people question how close this presidential race actually is, if the polls might have missed something again this cycle, and if it's possible that a political shift could be happening in other states, including, very importantly, the swing state of North Carolina, where polls have shown the race to be a dead heat. Now, I know that some of you think that's interesting that we're calling it a swing state, but let's just talk about North Carolina for a moment. In 2020, North Carolina was where Trump had his closest margin of victory and the only swing state that he managed to win. It tends to lean Republican. After all, North Carolina has only voted for the Democratic presidential nominee twice in the last 50 years. Although during that same period of time, numerous Democrats have succeeded in winning statewide elections, including very recently. Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance have also been spending a good chunk of time in the state recently. In fact, they're both making appearances there today. And that could be a sign that internally their campaigns are seeing some signs of weakness and the possibility that North Carolina could actually be in play for Democrats at the presidential level this year. Fortunately for us, we have exactly the perfect guest to talk about what's happening in North Carolina right now. Joining me now is the Democratic governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper. Governor, good to see you. My boss said you got Roy Cooper in the morning, so you better wear a tie because he's going to come wearing a tie and looking good. Good to see you, sir. Let's talk about this. You and I have spoken about North Carolina and the trickiness of it, the complexity of it, and part of that has to do with gerrymandering. Your state legislatures, you have a veto-proof majority, which you really worked on trying to overcome in terms of protecting abortion rights in that state. But statewide, Democrats get elected. Right now, your attorney general, who's running for governor, Josh Stein, is in a relatively comfortable lead against his opponent, your lieutenant governor, Mark Robinson. Talk to me about how that race affects the presidential race.
We think Kamala Harris is going to get a ground-up improvement in voting because of the important races that we have going on at the same time as the presidential race. Our governor's race, our Council of State race, Supreme Court race, all of our state legislative races are up. And we have the most extreme Republican candidates in the country who have been nominated by Republicans to run in these races. And people in North Carolina are upset about that. When you look at early voting, we set a record at more than 56% of people have already voted. 55.5% of that electorate were women. Mm-hmm. That sends a strong message that the abortion ban that Republicans were able to pass because Donald Trump overturned Roe v. Wade, they passed it by 1 vote over my veto. We're going to work hard to break that state legislative veto supermajority. We're going to work hard to get our statewide races, Democrats into office like Josh Stein. And we know that if Kamala Harris can win North Carolina, she is the next president of the United States. I was with her yesterday in Charlotte. I even took off my tie, and it was an excited crowd, people who were out there ready to go. working on election day. We know now that election day is the final day to get people to the polls. And it's time to win this thing for Kamala Harris. We believe we can do it.
Let's talk. I remember that day that you were out there. You and I spoke a couple times that week where you were out there trying to get one Republican in your state houses to a vote to allow your veto to stand and to preserve abortion rights. It was an electrifying time in North Carolina. The fact that there were lots of people out at rallies, they were not able to overcome the veto-proof majority. But the fact is, I could sense then, and by the way, we ran that live on this show. We don't rarely run a governor talking live about something on this show, but we ran that live to sort of give our viewers a sense of how electrifying an issue abortion rights are in North Carolina. Do you see that through line coming through between now and Tuesday?
No question about it. And I think that that's part of the reason for our gender gap. It's part of the reason why we have seen a 2% increase in suburban vote and early vote this time. That's the one and only bill that I have ever vetoed publicly. In North Carolina, we had 4 years of a broken supermajority. We were able to stop a lot of bad things and leverage good things like Medicaid expansion. But because we had one Democrat flip to Republican and give the Republicans a one-vote supermajority in both the state House and Senate, they were able to get this abortion ban in place, a 12-week abortion ban in place that people are upset about because there are other restrictions that cause problems for women. And they are remembering that as they go to the polls this time because people like Mark Robinson running for governor wants an abortion ban with no exceptions.
Right.
And the legislative leadership has talked about making this ban even worse. So not only are they going to be voting for Kamala Harris, who will support national legislation that would protect a woman's right to choose, but they're also trying to stop this at the state level. So now is the time to get this done. We think Kamala Harris is going to benefit from that. We think we can win North Carolina for her, and we know that will make her the next president.
Yeah, not only did Mark Robinson want a total ban, but he has said remarkably derogatory things about women. The last time North Carolina went blue was in 2008 when Barack Obama won. A number of people have been using that as a point of reference. In fact, during the beginning of the Harris campaign at an important rally in North Carolina, you said this feels like 2008.
It does. We made history by voting for Barack Obama in 2008. We can do that again with Kamala Harris. And it's not just the fact that she would be the first woman of color as president of the United States, the first woman president of the United States. Put that aside, although that's important and should have happened a long time ago. But the fact that she wants to make sure that she's fighting for the middle class. We know where Trump is with his billionaire friends. We know what his national tariffs are going to do, raising costs on everyday families by $4,000. And as people who are thinking about what they're going to do in this race, I'm asking them to listen to the ultra-conservative leaders who worked with him, who have now stood up, his chief of staff, his military generals, his attorney general, his vice president. This guy is dangerous. He doesn't need to be president of the United States again. We must protect our Constitution and our democracy. There are people who don't like both candidates who are deciding whether to vote, and if they do, who they're going to vote for. These are people we believe that we can capture in North Carolina right now. And not only is this a turnout race for us, we are working to persuade those people to go and vote and cast their vote for Kamala Harris.
Tell me what that argument is to those people who are still undecided, or if they're not undecided, they've got beef with both candidates. Given what you just said, the distinction between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, the lack of normalcy in this election, the lack of normalcy in the Republican candidate, what's your best closing argument to those people who are still reticent?
I've known Kamala Harris for 15 years. I know that she fights for everyday people and she wins. I've seen her stand up to the big banks to protect homeowners who had been ripped off. I've seen her stand up to drug cartels. She's worked to help put them in jail. She believes in our democracy and our Constitution. I want an American president who wakes up every morning thinking about the American people instead of American president who wakes up every morning thinking about himself. Donald Trump He has an enemies list based upon revenge. Kamala Harris has a to-do list based upon what she's going to do for the American people. To me, it's an easy choice, but for people who are trying to think about this and looking at it both ways, I'm going to go with the person who believes in our democracy and our Constitution and stands up for the middle class.
Yeah, I wish you were just being hyperbolic when you say he's got an enemies list, but he actually does. Governor, good to see you. As always. He actually does. Good to see you, sir. We appreciate the time you're taking this morning. Democratic Governor Roy Cooper of North Carolina. Coming up, as the governor and I were discussing, abortion is health care. I say it literally every show. And today, for only the second time ever, the one and only Rachel Maddow joins me live with a vital and comprehensive closing argument based on the history of the politicization of women's health care, the medical truth of abortion, and the reality of how and why this is all playing out this election year. Please don't miss this important conversation. Plus, the stars of The West Wing, Martin Sheen and Mary McCormick, a.k.a. President Jed Bartlett, and Deputy National Security Advisor Kate Harper, are starring alongside their West Wing alum in a new ad backing Kamala Harris. I'll talk to them both ahead on VeVelshi.
Doug.
Whoa, we moved. We're in a parade. Everyone, customize and save hundreds on car insurance with Liberty Mutual. Customize and save. And then I wake up.
And you have the stream every night?
Yeah, every night.
I see.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
He has plans to punish his political enemies in a second term, but no plan to punish corporations who rip you off. Trump is running to get revenge for himself. Kamala is running to get results for you. Her plans: cut middle-class taxes, end price gouging, protect Medicare and Social Security, and make life more affordable.
I will always put the middle class and working families first.
Trump fights for Trump. Kamala fights for you. FFPAC is responsible for the content of this ad.
At Fisher Investments, we may look like other money managers, but we're different.
How so?
We're a fiduciary, obligated to act in our clients' best interests, so we don't sell any commission-based products.
Then how do you make money?
We have a simple management fee, structured so we do better when our clients do better.
The clients really come first then, huh?
Yes, we make them a top priority by getting to know their finances, family, health, lifestyle, and more.
Wow. Maybe we are different.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different.
I tried a bunch of different probiotics before seed.
And they didn't help. It addressed my bloating and my irregularity.
It's really helping my daily bowel movements and keeping me pretty regular. I started feeling better and less bloated, felt flatter, lighter. I just keep going back to seed because it actually works.
Now I walk around and smiling every day because I don't get bloated anymore.
This is the story of the one who doesn't just see a broken dock, he sees work stalled to a halt. Thankfully, he has Grainger, offering the scale to deliver fast. Call, click Grainger.com, or stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
With Chime, I can get paid when I need it. I can get up to $500 of my money when I want it. With my pay, there's no credit check, no interest, and no mandatory fees. It's a game changer. And that's why I Chime. Join me at Chime.com and get paid when you say.
Hi, I'm Brad Baxter, founder of Whisk